Hello and welcome to this edition of Newsnight, where we talk to some of Nigeria's major players on its journey to development and the issues generated from that odyssey. I'm Ladi Akiridoluale. Thanks for joining us. October 1, 2020 marks 60 years since Nigeria gained political independence from its former colonial master, Great Britain. Even as the country celebrates as well as reflects on this milestone, what have been its major highlights, and how can the country move from where it is now to where it ought to be? And what role do the citizens have in this process? My guest on this edition of the program led the country for 8 of those 60 years, during which profound changes occurred in the body politic. Former military president, retired General Ibrahim Babangida. General, let me thank you once again for your time, and happy birthday in arrears. October 1, 1960 to now, 60 years. Where were you on October 1, 1960?
In secondary school in Bida. And it was the day we looked forward to, even though we were in school. But I think there was a lot of excitement. Independence Day. And of course, we were all involved in a lot of activities marking the independence, like parades, dances, merriments, and so on.
Do you remember thinking that this would be the start of something good for the country?
Yeah, listening to our teachers then and ourselves, I think we were beginning then to understand what becoming an independent nation is all about. We have a lot of hopes, or we had a lot of hopes for the country at that time.
You were one of those who was fortunate. You had a mix, not really a mix, but you had English teachers, and then you had 1 or 2 Nigerian teachers who were particularly close to the students in school. I believe there was a Mr. Akunde back then.
He's late now.
Yes, and did they give you the impression, both the white teachers and the Nigerians, did they give you the impression that what we were about to witness then as independence could impact positively on those of you who were then in school as students?
Well, when they came back, few of them were in England then, and when they came back, they tried to make us believe that we were now an independent country and no longer subject to the whims and caprices of colonial masters. And that is what attracted us, the whole idea of independence. We saw it, our teachers, because they were there, they talked to them anyhow, but all in an effort and competing with them in trying to impart knowledge on some of us. So we begin to think that what these white people could do, we have fellow Nigerians who are being able to do it.
Let me take your mind back to that period. I read that your nickname back then was Blockbuster.
In what language?
in English, and that had to do with your exploits on the football field. Then it was said that no one could get by you if you were marshalling the defense back then in the school.
Yeah, we played soccer very well. The school was very well known for soccer. And I also was brought up here in Mina. Soccer was the in thing for the younger generations in Mina. We operated a lot of clubs, football clubs in Mina, and so it couldn't have been a surprise because we were very, very keen. When we went to school, it's something I knew back home. I was doing it when I was in school. When I came on leave, I played for my club in Mina.
Did any of this have something to do with, and that was why I was trying to give the background. Did any of this have any impact on your decision to eventually choose to go into the Nigerian Army? Because it was said that you actually you were fascinated by engineering.
That was true. I had wanted to be an engineer. But then, back in about that period, we had some of our seniors. Some went to the police, others went to the Nigerian Army. And we became that they came and talked to us about the prospects of career in the military or in the police. And I remembered in just a year before independence, back in 1959, Yakubu Gawan was in our school. As a captain, I think. He came, he had his own teacher who was in Bida teaching, an old man called Onimole. And the purpose of Yakubu Gawan's visit to us was to educate us, to tell us to make a career into the Nigerian army. Our teacher then, when Yakubu Gawan came, he all collected us. He said, "This young man is my student. He was a good student. He was doing his homework all the time. He was very bright. He joined the military, and here, look at him now, a captain. We want you also to emulate Yakubu Gawan, go into the army, become army officers, and so on." So we all became very interested in joining the Nigerian army. I jettisoned the idea of becoming an engineer.
But it wasn't that easy because, of course, key members, powerful members of your family then were in opposition to your move to join the army. As many of them were like, look, the engineering, doctors, and so on were more like what they wanted you to do. But you insisted.
Yeah, I was smart enough to know that within the members of the family, there was one who had no objection, and he was very influential too. It's like my grand uncle, and I went to him, played some little politics with him to support me before my other, and he did, and that's how it came. He said you should allow him to go again, and so they didn't want to argue with him again.
You joined what was then the most nationalistic of the country's institutions, which was the army, because in the army everybody was in level. It didn't matter who you were or where you came from, or what mattered was what you could do and your output, performance. Did that have anything to do with your person? That is, your belief in that anything that was put before you, you could do?
Yeah, I think it, in a way, it did. In our formative years as cadets, when we first joined the military, we had an instructor who would teach us to say that when you go into war, the bullet that is coming to hit you will not discriminate whether you are Hausa, Fulani, or Muslim or Christian. That bullet will hit anybody. So that gave us the impetus to try to look at things nationally, without calling ourselves either Hausa or Fulani. Once we have that uniform, then we become one and the same people.
What do you think has been or have been our most important achievements in the last 60 years?
In the last 6 years,
Because people dwell a lot on the problems and the challenges. But what do you think have been our most important achievements?
I think the fact that we were able to remain, despite all the things that happened, the fact that we were able to remain one as a country, I think this is our greatest achievement.
But there are others who will point to the fact that there are other things that helped that to happen, including things like infrastructure development, the issue of schooling, health, people moving from one part of the country to the other. I know that in your career you spent a lot of time in Lagos, in spite of the fact that you were brought up
18 years.
in Mina here. And during the Civil War, you were in the East. So you had the opportunity to go around. I'm just wondering that at this stage now, do you think we dwell too much on the problems?
I think that's, you got it right. We tend to talk too much about the problems. We don't talk about the solutions to the problem. Our narratives are always problems, not solutions, not beliefs. We talk little about our beliefs, about what we stand for, about what we want the country to be. We always talk about the problem of the country and dwell on that problem, which I think should be the next stage. We have a country, we must make it work.
There have been some seminal points, and one of the advantages of having the privilege to speak to someone like you is to offer a perspective on those seminal points. One of them was the tea riots, which in turn led to the first coup, and then the counter coup, and then the civil war. Some of the historians I've spoken to say that that was where our divergence in terms of what later on became problems for the country started. Now, you had a role in all of those. So this is not outside looking in. You were in. Is that true? Is that a fair comment to make about those events?
Well, you know, immediately after, is the whole politics, I think, the politics of that time. There we are with political parties, not really well advanced in politics. Neither did we have enough coaching and teaching. It took us, from, let's say, actively in the 50s, when we became independent. We started with self-governing of the various regions that make up Nigeria. Then suddenly it culminated into independence for the entire country. I think then in the process, the whole political atmosphere then, there are people who wanted to be on their own, others wanted to formation of political parties. We were not very conversant with the whole concept of politics and politicking. That brought about a lot of problems for us in the country. You have political parties that wanted to carve an estate or a region and call it their own and try to harp on that. We didn't develop this concept of a federal government with the states or the regions, autonomous regions, and so on. Every region wants to be on its own. So that brought about the lack of stability of the various countries. So in the process of developing that, we got involved in a lot of internal security operations. You mentioned the Tiv riots, the Operation Wetier, and so on. So these are all problems of development at that time. But then, up to the time, it culminated into a military coup. By then, Africa generally, intervention by military was the in thing. It started in 1952 in Egypt, gradually doing away with the monarchy in Egypt, subsequently followed by other Maghreb countries and so on and so forth. Then it gradually came into our own part of Africa. There was a time when there was a coup in Ghana. If Nigeria stages a coup, Ghana will do the same, or Ghana will do the same, Nigeria will try to do the same. So fortunately, the military who intervened at that time were all nationalistic. They did not believe in separation. So all they have to make sure they do is to make sure that the countries, various countries, remain one, not divided.
When it culminated in the Civil War, you fought in that war. As I said earlier, majorly in the East. At its end, there were two phrases. The first was the no victor, no vanquish. The second was the 3 R's, which General Gawan put in place. At that point, because again, I could imagine in my head you in a very deep part of the East, waiting for orders, and then General Theophilus Danjuma showing up and saying, look, guys, the war is over. We can go home. At that point, did you think indeed it was over and we could all go home? What went through your mind at that point?
What first went through my mind was the fact that there was no then shooting war. We will not be shooting at each other in the name of Nigeria or Biafra or something like that. We are coming together as Nigerians and we are having one country, Nigeria as our country. That was what was very paramount enough. And the leadership also believed in that, so they came out with those programs that you no vanquish, no conquered, no the 3 R's and so on. And I must say that credit to Nigerians, this is perhaps one of the few countries in the world that went through a civil war and survived it.
Subsequently, on balance, there will be those who will say that the military built more things in Nigeria than the civilians. Bridges, schools, hospitals, and so on. Is that just because it was the military, or was it a deliberate design, since it was a command structure, that it was easier to do under a military system than it would be under a civilian or democratic system?
No, there are certain things that are easier being done under a military system than under a political situation. I tease my friends if I go into, say, a council meeting and there is going to be a road from Mina to Kano, for example. I don't need to go through the whole process. Not that we don't do, we do go through the whole process of politicking to get it. Oh yes, this. We have a shortcut. We know it is needed. It is needed. Therefore, go ahead and do it. We need this road because of the following reasons. We need it. Yes, we need it. Do we have the money to get that road? Yes. So we put the machinery in place to get the road being constructed. It's easier for developments under a military regime than under a civilian, under a political system, because you have to put politics into consideration all the time, appointments and so on. And the military also provided that because of the peculiar nature of the country, the question of federal character, because we wanted to have one country, you find that if in any appointment, ministerial or whatever, you have to reflect the federal character of the country. If it is infrastructural development, the same thing. If you do this in this zone, you have to, at the state level, you find that politically they divided the states into three: zone A, B, C, or zone 1, or central, or so that there is an equitable balance as far as the areas of the areas within the states. You know, you have to balance the development. It's easier to do that under military than under a political system.
Just before I embarked on the journey down here, someone was reminding me, and that's why I said I would ask you, the Aso Rock Villa, the Third Mainland Bridge, the Federal Secretariat. These are huge edifices which were built during your time as president. In many instances, they found it difficult to replicate some of those or even maintain some of those edifices under the current system. As I'm speaking to you now, the Third Mainland Bridge is closed. But that was after so many years of bickering over whether or not it should be closed, when it should be closed, and so on. So, on balance, would you say that, as someone had proposed, that going forward now, maybe the military should be saddled with infrastructure projects while the civilians should get on with the politicking?
No. I think the whole idea about development in a country has to do with politics. The people playing the politics must be determined at all the time to know what is right for the country and what is right for the people, and still use politics to achieve those things. Military intervention in some of these things is an aberration. I don't think we should encourage the military at all.
You are actually quoted as saying a while back that only a stupid soldier now would attempt a coup.
Absolutely.
But just before you made that comment, the soldiers in Mali did.
Maybe they are stupid.
Or perhaps maybe you were referring to the Nigerian soldiers.
No. But I mean it. From, say, about 1989 to now, things have changed. The whole world has embraced democracy, economic reform, open market, and so on and so forth. And there is no place for military in those things that are being accepted now. It is best done by politicians, and the civilians. So the world is becoming closer together. I said stupid because the moment you take over a government, you find if you are in West African sub-region, ECOWAS will come after you, African Union will come after you, European Union will come after you, the superpowers will come after you, and everything that will have to you want to do in terms of development, politically or otherwise, they are not going to accept that. And you belong to a committee of nations, and you cannot work on your own. You have to. So if the whole world, the United Nations said, no, we have to run a democratic government, anybody who tries to go off the tangent, there is the tendency to sanction him either at the United Nations level, at ECOWAS level, at AU level, just like you mentioned Mali. Maybe if there was no intervention, only God knows how long they are going to remain there as in government. But I think they have been given a time of 18 months within which to go back to democratically elected system.
What do you feel and what do you think when people say that the Nigerian military, of which you're one of the most prominent members, created more problems than they solved?
No, we didn't create problems. We tried to provide the framework upon which subsequent governments or subsequent people who are going to come after it could build upon. Like you earlier said, most of the infrastructural developments, even the democracy, we midwifed it. So development, democracy, free market economy, all we started, all these things. So this is the end thing. We were able to capture what the world is doing now and to try to bring it into our own country. And we are the politicians, the civilians are the best people in handling these things. So we lay the solid foundation for that. And
Then let me ask the inverse part of the question, which is there's no military administration that works without civilians in it. There's no entirely military administration.
no, I agree with you. You are quite right. That's why I find it silly to say that we created the problem. It's a joint venture between the military and the civilians. You are there to show us how the civil service operates, how it works, how the system works, the institutions of governance, the institution of government. All these are civilians' prerogative.
Since we're on the subject, let me ask, what do you think about Nigerian politicians and politics?
Nigerian politician is a politician.
Because you at the beginning, when you joined the army, the story is that you kept your distance from them. You didn't think there were people that were, most of them anyway, that you needed to relate with. There was this oily thing about them. That's what you were quoted as saying, that they were oily. You couldn't hold them to anything. But then as you advanced, you then related with them. You had to. What did you think of them then and now?
Well, at that time, throughout Africa, there was the general belief that the people there at the helm of affairs at that time were the problems of the country, be it insecurity, economic development. The people in government are the cause of all that problem. And suddenly some wild ideas came into the military, both in Latin America, in Arab countries, in African countries. So the whole idea of coups began to manifest. And it fortunately, it didn't stay for too long. We first saw it in Nigeria in 1966. We intermittently, we handed over, came back again, now handed over, and it looks, as far as I'm concerned, it will not reoccur again, especially in a country like Nigeria.
Why do you think so?
Like I said, a sensible military man will not like to drag his country into a lot of problems, sanctions, instability within the country, because people want to rule themselves. They don't want anybody to impose anything on them. The civilian wants to rule himself, and it's a representative government. I will want you to be my governor, but I have to elect you as my governor. We don't get elected. So people want to get involved in how they are governed. That is the main reason.
History has taught that more often than not, and you've confirmed this previously, that more often than not, mostly, the military is there minding its own business. Disaffected, disgruntled politicians, maybe who lose out in the political calculations and the equations, call on the military to say, look, these guys are not behaving well, they are moving the goalposts, they're not playing the game by the rules. We can't get them out of here.
You can't get who?
Those people, the civilians out, the civilian politicians out of there. Come and help us do it.
No, that's why you have you established a system whereby governments are changed every 3 years, every 4 years, or every 5 years. The government that is not doing well, then the people come together, vote it out. So you have a remedy for it.
And you think Nigerians use that remedy properly?
They are. We have a change of governments from 1915 till now. We changed government in 1915. And changed presidents also before 1915. So I think gradually, by and large, we should be able to do that. If a government comes in, let it say 4 years, you assess it based on its performance.
I think you're referring to 2015, Your Excellency.
2015.
Indeed. All right. But let me now ask you about the people themselves, because leaders don't emerge in isolation. You talk about the people. And I know you know Nigerians very well. You've had cause to interact.
I pray
with
so.
them very, very well. You said so yourself that you know Nigerians very well. What do you think about Nigeria? Apart from the fact that we like to talk a lot, which you have also said, even though I don't know whether you said it in a good way or in a bad way.
We are very enlightened people. And we like to, we don't keep it. I will tell you a story. In 1977, during the Cultural Black Festival of Arts,
First time.
First tech. President Obasanjo was the head of state at that time. So there were a lot of African contingents who visited there. So as the head of state, he was going around the various contingents from different countries to talk to them. How is it? I hope you are enjoying yourself here. Any problem? Is there anything we can do? You know, typical man management, like we call it in the military. So when he started going anywhere he went, oh, well, we thank God, we are happy that we are here with our brothers in Nigeria. He kept on moving and the response was positive. When he went another contingent to say, well, how are you? Are you okay? Are you happy? Then there were hands up. We are not happy. There are a lot of problems. Then he said, this must be a Nigerian contingent.
Was he right, Your Excellency?
He was right. Oh, if you go outside this country where you get a group of Africans talking, let's say in a hotel or in a restaurant, the ones with the highest voices and argumentative, you find them, they are Nigerians. This is part of us. There is nothing we can. It's probably a virtue, one of our greatest virtues, the ability to talk and to express our feelings, our minds, and so on.
Today, we in the country, as we celebrate its 60th, there are those who will say it's at a crossroads, and like it had always had all through. Fair share of achievements, but also a fair share of challenges. When you sit down, someone in your position with a great deal of knowledge, perspective, information, and all of that, do you sometimes fear for the country?
I am an optimist. There has to be, the challenges have to be there. And who will solve those challenges, who will confront those challenges is you and me. And the sooner we realize that, the better for the country. We just have to solve the problem.
Some are discussing unity, and I remember the last time I sat here in this room to talk to you, you said that there were some of you for whom the unity question had been settled.
That's right.
But there are those for whom it is not settled. They're not talking about secession, but they're saying that there needs to be discussions, roundtable discussions about how we do this. There had always been this back and forth. Do you think we should go back?
To where?
For example, regionalism perhaps? Or what's your own take? What do you make of all this back and forth? No, it's restructuring. No, it's federalism. No, we should go back to...
I think we should look at governance, what governance is all about. And to go about it, in Nigeria you have local governments, state governments, and federal governments. Now, if you are able to define local governments at various levels, their responsibilities, division of responsibilities between the local government and the state government, the federal government and the state governments. If they are defined, their roles, for example, if you look at places in the, let's say, America, if a government, if a local government within its own responsibility, areas of responsibility, designs something for the well-being of those people, the state can't interfere. They allow them to do it. They have to be funded to do what they wanted to do. So is also the states and the federal government. I think if everybody is given, this is your responsibility at this level, and this is your money, these are the consequences of not being able to do what you said you are going to do the people. I think we will hold this idea. It is the way the resources are being managed and the way the resources are being applied for the purposes of development. We have always argued before in the past, there are certain ministries at the federal level which the federal government doesn't need to bother itself about. They should devolve that, let's say, to states, to individuals, and so on.
As we wind this down, Your Excellency, I want you to now take a look ahead. We're 60, but going forward, I'm leery of saying that you should gaze into your crystal ball and try to define a path for the country. But that's what I want you to do. Where do you think we should go?
How?
In terms of development. We'll spend this interview talking about the history,
Yeah.
where we were, how it went on, what it became as at now. Now going forward, people tend to talk about, okay, yeah, 5 years from now, where do you want to see the country? What do you want to see it doing that it isn't doing currently?
I think in the next couple of years, we should be able to realign ourselves with the current thinking in the world about governance, about development, about technology. All be it, now is a digital age. We are blessed. We have very bright manpower. The people, both the young and the old, are very energetic. So we should be able to match equally with the developed world as far as development is concerned. This is what we should look forward to. In the past, you have the Asian tigers, for example. We played with an idea many years back when we were talking about axis of development, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, all that areas, and so on and so forth.
Straight through the middle of the continent.
That's right. And we have in Africa the brain, the job has been done. It's only implementation. So the next generation will be able to go back, look into the library or in the archive, bring it out, and implement a lot of things. We are doing a lot of researches in technology in the country, Silver Valley sort of idea. In Nigeria, people are doing that, and I think that if we're able to mobilize that, put them together, and channel it towards development, then we will be right up there.
General, we talked about research. How far with the book?
Which one?
The book you promised. that you've started writing?
It's still in the works.
General, will you write? Are you going to write this? Or as some of my colleagues who are familiar with the military said, they said each time you ask General Babangida about this book, you seem to forget that he is bound by an oath to keep a number of things private, secret.
Like what?
That you can't talk about.
No. And don't forget, you keep things secret not only in Nigeria but throughout the world for a certain number of years, beyond which nobody will punish you for opening the secret because you have passed the statute limitation period. And it will come. If it didn't come, my children will go into the classroom again and make research and produce. Yeah.
But while you are here, they would expect that, of course, you would give them a great deal of the information. And if they are anything like you, that might be an even more difficult task to get them to say anything.
Then they become a reservoir for research people. Anything that you need the research about us, we have it in abundance. And there are a lot of others who have kept that. I know General Obasanjo had a library rich.
Written quite a number of books too.
That's right.
I really hope you write this book, General, so that in time for your 80th.
I am scared of somebody suing me to court.
What could they do?
Go to court for breach. Either to say that I libeled somebody or I misrepresented this straight away, and I will spend 5 years going to court all the time doing nothing.
I remember the late Professor Chinua Achebe saying that if you disagree with somebody who's written an account of history, the best way to disagree is write your own account.
That's right.
So if they disagree, let them tell us what it is that is different.
I think I will go along that way. If you disagree, write your own. I will read it.
Your Excellency, it's been a pleasure as always to speak with you on this occasion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
That's it on this edition of the program. Would like to hear from you through our various media platforms. The handles are there on your screen. Newsnight also has its podcast where you can listen to this and other interviews featured on the program. Just go to channelstv.com/podcast. I'm Ladi Akeredoluale. Goodbye.